Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us for this little bit of Aramaic on a Sunday morning. We are reading from Matthew chapter 5, verse 10, going through the Sermon on the Mount or the Beatitudes. And of course, today, as many of you are so familiar with this, but in the Aramaic, there's a few things that really piqued my interest. So let's try to read so you can hear maybe what it sounded like. No one knows exactly for sure, but let's give it a try. Here we're reading from the left and it goes to the right. So it's tu vaihun, which is the word for blessed or ashrei equivalent. Lidain, date rudefu, um, metun kainuta dedil lehun, he malkuta da shemaya. So again, very interesting because especially this word, defa, doesn't have some vowels under what you would think would be a oo sound at the end. The resh has the assumed um, shava underneath it, vocal shava. So it's kind of different. But again, you kind of get the feel for how it sounds, very different for us English speakers. Um, but it's the language Jesus spoke. So he's speaking to those on the hillside. And what's interesting here is last week we talked about verse 9, which was the makers of peace. And so we jump from makers of peace into those that are persecuted. And so it's like, okay, this is opposite ends of the spectrum. Not that it maybe doesn't fit, because when we get to verse 11, it talks about, very similar persecutions. But I was just, caught by the quick change in thought. And then also another item in this verse that causes my attention is the reward. You notice that as we've been going through this, there have been differences in the results or rewards, even though I don't like to really use that word, but the end results vary. And so this one here, we've seen this one before, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. If we go back to verse 3, um, we will be refreshed and reminded that those that are poor in spirit, their end result or reward is the kingdom of heaven. And so that's kind of interesting. Is there a link between, what was being requested or mentioned in verse 3 for the reward of the kingdom of heaven versus those that are persecuted? And then this word righteousness, of course, is tzedakah in Hebrew. And there's another verse very similar to that in verse 6, where it says that those that hunger and thirst onto this tzedakah or this righteousness. So that word is the same in verse 10 here, and then the kingdom of heaven is the same as in verse 3. Also want to draw your attention to Matthew chapter 19, verse 14. Jesus makes another reference here when little children are coming to him, and the disciples are trying to forbid him, and he mentions that of such is the kingdom of heaven. So we have a number of references here of what the kingdom of heaven is like, or what is constitutes those that are seeking that. And so, with that thought, we're going to jump into parsing out, which is a word used for dissecting and analyzing. So we click to analyze here on the Dukrana, very handy, makes it very easy. You don't really have to know the language, as I try to emphasize to everyone that these Bible programs are so handy, and I don't want you to feel intimidated by it in any way, but just to go and search around, study, and you will certainly be blessed by it. So here is the grammatical analysis. It has the word, has the ID, has the root, gives you the category, and it gives you the meaning. So we want to look at this word translated as persecute. When we look at the translations, all of them, King James, all of them are pretty much the same. Here, Lamsa changes righteousness for justice, but everything is the ending of the kingdom of heaven, and the word persecuted is used in every one. But here we look that this word persecute comes from a meaning that also means to follow. And so I guess we can understand that logic. If someone is persecuting you, they are following you. And so there's a similar meaning. Remembering that all of the Hebrew verbs have a mood to them, have somewhat of a tense, even though most people will not want to call it a tense, but they have aspect is another word that's more commonly used. But it gives you a mood of the verb. It gives you an idea of what the verb is relating to. And here we see this is in a form that's called an FPL. And the FPL in Aramaic is equivalent to the Hippael in Hebrew, which is a reflexive. Now, reflexive in the Hebrew means that it's something that you are doing to yourself. And when I saw that, it was like, well, what's going on here? Normally, persecution is something that someone else does to you. I would have expected this to be in an intensive form, like a pa'el or in Aramaic, or PL equivalent in Hebrew, but this is in a reflexive form, something that you do to yourself, which made me look at it from an aspect of that this we are being instructed to follow something on our own, to cause ourselves to pursue down this pathway of of righteousness, and that fits perfectly with some of the previous verses to pursue um, justice. Here you can see the word righteousness, uprightness, godliness, rectitude, um, which is standing upright, and justice, that we are supposed to pursue that. And suddenly that made it harmonize really well with all the other verses. In fact, what's interesting here is this word used for follow or persecute is only used one time in the entire Peshitta New Testament, and it is in this case here. So that's another clue that's telling me that maybe this is leaning more towards being instructed that we are to pursue righteousness, pursue tzedakah. And previous studies have unpacked that word tzedakah, so we won't do it again. But this is another emphasizing of it, of something that we should be pursuing. So as we move on through this, we have this word for translate as because, and it is metul. And as we unpack metul, again, yeah, because is pretty much the main one, but it's on account of, which gives it just a little bit different aspect of the reasoning behind it, and something that fits more, that if we are to be pursuing this tzedakah or this righteousness, there's a reason for it. Because of is normally a result that's imposed upon us, but on account of is something that we internalize ourselves, or the value that we place on it to motivate us to pursue this. And so that fit just beautifully. And if we take a look at Marcus Jastrow in his unpacking of the Talmudic Aramaic, we go to page 670 or 767, and we scroll down here and we look at least the form of this word of the Tav, or excuse me, Mem Tet Lamed, we have that it's an imposed destiny. So instead of just being on account of, this is an imposed destiny, which fits in beautifully with the pursuit of the kingdom of heaven. And so I was really just blessed by learning that little bit of unpacking. And then, of course, we get to the word justice here, and then this word that we are to own it. that it's part of something that is becomes part of our nature, that and to own the kingdom of heaven, to let it become something that we're internalizing, and that this imposed destiny is something that we are seeking after. So I thought with that, wanted to just share those beautiful, beautiful truths. Wanted to also look at the um, Matthew Harley text that I have been kind of unpacking, and this is that same verse. It uses the word ashrei, but they use a word sheye radafu, and so that also means to pursue, and then on account of producing the tzedakah or tzedakah, the righteousness. And so this Hebrew translation dovetails and supports very nicely the way we unpack the Aramaic of pursuing tzedakah for the same end result of the realm of heaven. And so, again, looking at the Hebrew to just support this, came up with just a thought of what it means to me is that kindness that we show is expressed through our actions and will lead to tzedakah, or good works or deeds or actions that are in alignment with God's will. And when there's a changed heart, that's what gives us the desires to fulfill these principles, which is that hitpael understanding of something that's reflexive, something that's coming out from inside of you and giving you that ratzon, or that desire to fulfill these principles that are part of God's kingdom, part of God's nature. That mind that was in Christ Jesus would be in us, and that his thoughts would become our thoughts and his ways would become our ways. And that all fits beautifully together in the study of this verse today. So God bless you. Pray you enjoy that. And thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.